Hello, Cleveland. This is Alan Keller from the Too Much Effing Perspective podcast, and welcome to Quick Taps, short episodes with short stories for short attention spans. Today's episode is entitled, I Hope We Pass the Audition, Spinal Tap Moments When Artists Took Odd Paths to Landing Their Big Gigs. Our first story comes from Divine Sweater lead singer Meg Kelleher, who is a living example of the saying, success is where preparation meets opportunity.
I was a really big fan of this band called Small Talk, and I learned all the words to their songs. I would go to all their shows, and one day I was at one of their shows, and their singer just didn't show up. So then Sean, guitar player, we'd become friendly, was like, all right, I don't really know what to do. It was like a packed room at Great Scott in Boston, which is an incredible venue that sadly has closed. And he was like, I know that you know all the words to the songs. I'm going to need you to just sing them. So we ran into like an ATM next to Great Scott and quickly tried to learn the songs. And then I went up, and it was the first time I ever played a gig. Even though like it was this kind of crazy situation for them that I'm sure was really stressful, it was pretty epic for me. And then I just became part of their band. And so that's sort of the origins of our band. Eventually we divulged into Divine Sweater.
Story number 2 comes from actor and 86-year-old TikTok sensation Annie Korsen, who lives by the creed, there's no such thing as a small role.
I got a call from an agent around 1991 who said this new show, we don't know much about it. One of the actresses in his agency had turned down the audition because she felt it was too small. She was better known than I. She had a little bit of a reputation. She didn't want to do that. I said, I'm in, I'll do it. And the audition's in the Valley, and I can barely drive. Somehow I missed the turnoff. And suddenly I find myself on the fast lane of the Hollywood freeway, going my usual top speed of 32 miles an hour. And I've got to cross 6 lanes of rush hour traffic because the exit comes up very fast. And so I realized that there was a very good chance that I was going to die, right? I managed it. I survived. I go in. I book this little big part. And I do this episode. And then we watch it when it airs. And my husband says, I don't get it. The story is not about anything. The show was Seinfeld. And my little bit part became the recurring role of Doris Klompus down in the condo where my husband is always fighting with Jerry's father, my husband, Jack Klompus. So not only did I get a recurring role on Seinfeld, but they liked me. And since I wasn't that noticeable, they hired me for a second role. I played an obnoxious airline passenger when Elaine is stuck in coach and Jerry gets bumped up to first class. So I am in some of the iconic episodes, okay? The first one was The Pen. Then there was Raincoats. There was Cadillac. There was 100 Best Scenes. And there was the airplane thing. Of the 4 or 5 episodes I did, I probably had a total of 28 lines. I once counted them. To this day, I've received about $100,000 in residuals. So I sometimes think of the actors who turned down, she said, no, any association with that show. I suddenly started getting calls and getting booked. And it's one of the themes of my book, The Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an accidental influencer. Just say yes. You never know what is going to lead to what.
For our final story, actor Jeff Grace tells us that landing a role on the epic AMC show Mad Men didn't necessarily mean he was going to keep it. In fact, it was a very close shave.
If you've ever been an actor, there's the option often to do a table read. And agents and managers will say, don't do the table read. It's just a chance to get fired. But I was like, I can't blow off this table read, right? So like, I'm going. And my agent's like, oh, you can't stop you, but just don't be unprepared. So I was definitely prepared. Everyone's there and we're just about to start. And then in comes like a full-blown sprint and then slides across the floor on like slippers is Vincent Kartheiser, I think I'm saying his name correctly. And he literally does the jazz hands. He starts hugging everybody. Clearly, he's like the class clown or whatever. I really thought he was like an amazing actor. So I was like, oh. And there's an empty chair next to me, and I see him circling this table of like 60 people. And all of a sudden, he plops right down next to me and does like the, "Hi, Vincent. Who the fuck are you?" But in a kind of charming way. "Oh, I'm Jeff. I kind of didn't know what to say. Like, I'm playing this guy Jones in the first. Yeah, it's a good role." He's like, "What else have you done?" I was like, "This is my first TV thing I've ever done." He goes, "Oh man, you better not fuck this up." He's like, "If you fuck this up, they're gonna fire you right here in the room." And I'm like, "What? I can't believe this guy's like fucking with me like this." And so it starts off with Matthew Weiner being like, "Hey, everybody, so glad you could come back." I'm like pinching myself that we're back for another season. Let's get underway. And then someone important is reading stage direction. And my scene is relatively early in the show. And as it gets closer and closer, Vincent's just like scooching his chair over to me. I don't know this guy. And he's like, "Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. Don't get in your head. Just do what you prepared." And I'm like, I can't believe this. I'm losing my shit. And then it gets to my scene, and like I just basically feel like I can't even speak. It goes fine. It get past that moment. I didn't get fired that day, but I had a little bit of stubble on my face that day. But in my audition with Matt Weiner, I was clean shaven. So when I show up to set a couple days later, Matthew Weiner, 7:30 in the morning, walks into the makeup room, looks at me and goes, "Why the fuck are you clean shaven?" I go, "What?" He goes, "You had some stubble last I saw you." I go, "Oh, that was the table read. But when I auditioned with you, I was clean shaven." He's like, "No, you weren't." And I'm like, oh, fuck. I am going to lose this job because of the table read, because I just didn't think anything about it. And I had just shaved that morning. So the makeup artist goes, Matt, calm down. If you want a little stubble, I can do that." And he goes, "How the fuck are you going to do that?" And she's like, "I've been doing this for 25 years. We can do that." He's like, "I've never heard of being able to make someone have stubble last minute. This is a disaster." And he walks out. And so I said, "How are you going to do that?" She goes, "Oh, you can't do that." There's nothing that can make it look like you have stubble. She's like, "Anything we do make it look worse. He'll forget about it." And so I sat every hour until I was shooting. I'm like, someone's going to come in here and tell me I'm not booking it. But I think that makeup artist saved me that day. Just tell him, "Oh yeah, we'll give him some stubble."
I hope we passed the audition today on this TMEP show Quick Tap. I certainly wouldn't pass an audition if it were for a British character. So anyways, if we did, please follow, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you listen to this show. Tune in next week when my co-host Alex Hoffman and myself return for more Spinal Tap moments on Too Much Effing Perspective.
Although it would be as great as having armadillos in our trousers, this podcast is not affiliated with This Is Spinal Tap, and no person or entity connected with the film has sponsored or endorsed its content. This podcast is not affiliated, sponsored, or licensed by Authorized Spinal Tap LLC or Century of Progress Productions. Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Evergreen Podcast Network.